Welcome to Dr. CC's, The Lady of Wisdom, the Important Things podcast. Dr. CC reminds you that it's not what you're going through, but what you're going to do that will define your purpose. The podcast covers the must acts and need to know questions that will weaponize you for your success in the marketplace of life. The Important Things podcast is designed to enrich, educate, and bring to light the dark places in your life, career, and business.
Hi, I'm Dr. CC, the Lady of Wisdom, and I have a quick question. Did you know that if your parent or a loved one unexpectedly died without a will and your name was not listed as a POD on the bank account, that bank account would be locked? You would be unable to use funds for your mom or dad's funeral or burial expenses. Hi, I'm Dr. CC. Welcome to the podcast. Listen, what is important to you may not be important to others, but I can assure you it is important to me. Welcome to the Important Things podcast. Please subscribe and share the podcast with friends and family members. The Important Things podcast is designed to enrich, educate, and bring to light the dark places in your life and business so that you can what? Live a joyful life. Today's topic is about the family business of a caregiver. The family business of a caregiver. You are a caregiver if you take care of your children, you're a wife, you have a husband, you have children, you have a career, you're dealing with grandparents, or you're dealing with taking care of a parent, then you are a caretaker. And this podcast is for you. Today we're going to talk about that's right, I said five acronyms that every caretaker should know.
Dear Lord, please bless those who are selfless and who give so much of themselves for the well-being of others. As they provide care for their fellow sisters and brothers in you, provide them with blessings, increase, and favor for all they do. Lord, bless the works of their hands and allow everything they do to prosper as you promise. We ask these blessings and so many others over them in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Proverbs 19:7.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that prayer that I put together in an audio book from several years ago from second edition of Mama's Book of Prayer, Prompts, Power, and Praise, because as you can tell, I love good, and I emphasize good care providers, and I applaud good caretakers. Now, listen, we've looked at the five acronyms, so now let's talk about it, okay? Let's start with the acronym POD. POD stands for Power of Attorney, and if you are responsible for, and you're a caregiver, you should have your loved ones complete the POA. Or the second one, we're going to talk about the dual power of attorney. But let me tell you the role of the power of attorney, because a lot of people start out, they just have the power of attorney and they're calling us and saying, that's not sufficient. You need to have dual power of attorney. So it's best to just start with dual power of attorney instead of power of attorney. But let me explain the difference. Power of attorney authorizes you to serve as the power of an attorney. You are the power in fact, granting you the authority to act on behalf of your loved ones. That means you can take care of all of the medical concerns for your loved ones. Now, you should provide a copy to the bank. You should provide a copy to the tax assessor's office, and any agency that you're going to contract business with, you need to provide them with that POD. But did you know that the POD, like the POA, which is the power of attorney, and I'm also talking about now what? The power of attorney and the dual power of attorney ends the moment your loved one stops breathing. That authority is gone. You cannot transact any business on their behalf. You cannot sign any forms on their behalf, and you have nothing to do with their financials at that point if you have either the dual power of attorney or the power of attorney. Now, let me tell you the advantages of the dual power of attorney and why I say get it instead of the power of attorney. The authority that you have to handle medical is just the power of attorney, but the dual power of attorney gives you what? Authority for financial as well as medical. Let me reverse that. The POD allows you to be responsible and act as the attorney in fact for your parent or loved one. All right. But the dual power of attorney gives you the advantage of not only being able to be the attorney in fact for their medical, but also for their financial. But I do need you to know and understand, because it is hard when people find this out, that the POD and the dual power of attorney ends the moment your loved one stops breathing. Your authority ends at that point. You can't transact any more business on their behalf. So, whatever you need to do for your parents, whatever business you need to get in place, whatever financials you need to have in order, the time to do it is while they're still alive, while you all can discuss it, and while you can implement and put things in place so you don't have that heartache and pain dealing with these issues later, those type of issues. Now, this brings me to the acronym every caregiver must know. It's called POD. Let me say that again, POD, paid on death, which stands for what? Paid on death. If you are not listed as the joint owner on a bank account and that person dies, guess what? Without having POD on their checkings, savings, or their business account, their accounts are frozen. Hear me. Their accounts are frozen if they die without a will and no one is listed as a POD signer or a POD on their account. Their accounts are frozen by the bank and you cannot get any funds from it, not for the burial, not for the funeral, not for expenses related to taxes after death, etc., etc. Okay? That's why it's so important that you go to the bank with your loved one and request the POD form and have your name added to all. Don't make the mistake, oh, I put it on the checking, but I didn't put it on the saving. Oh my God, I forgot about putting it on the business account. You need to do this for yourself as well as for the loved one that you may be taking care of or may have to take care of in the future. Let me give you a little background, because I believe God is so intentional that he everything we go through, He's leading us to an advancement for the next level that we'll experience in life. And so we're going to need those things that sometimes we thought were hard. Sometimes we thought, I don't even know why I'm hearing this. But believe me, as my mom, you'll see it again, you'll hear it again. And when you hear it the next time, you'll understand it. So let me give you a backstory on my experience with POD. It was actually about probably now 20 plus years ago. I was attending a conference at a local hotel and was having a late lunch. Happened to be sitting across from two Caucasian men who were deep in conversation in reference to the death of one of their parents. And he said, my brother, who never did anything for my mom, would never come and see her. As soon as he found out that she was dead, he ran to the bank thinking that he could go and collect the monies from her account. And he said some other things, but he said, you know what? I'm so glad I had put POD. POD was on the bank accounts and he couldn't get a dime. And I'm sitting there like, what in the world is a POD? And when I left the conference, I was more interested in finding out what POD meant or what it was than anything I was supposed to do in presenting the next day in the conference. But I found out that POD represented the acronym Pay on Death. And so uh, if you are taking care of a loved one, or if you're just a sibling and y'all want to make sure that everything is right and you don't end up in probate, and monies are not locked by the banks because the person may have died without a will, go ahead and have POD put on the account. It's a simple process. You and the loved one goes to the bank, you request a form, and tell them you need that put on whoever name you want to put on there. If you want all your siblings' name on there, or if you just need your name on there, whatever the case might be, that's between you and the person that you're taking care of to work out those arrangements. But POD, pay on death, that's very important. Why is that so important? Because if your loved one dies without a will and you're not a joint owner on the account, guess what? Their accounts are frozen. You will not be able to get one dime out of that account for any reason until you go to court and an executor of the estate is established. And I've experienced this as a pastor, and I've experienced this with talking with others through the years. And actually, a friend a couple of months back called me devastated over the sudden loss of his mom. And he said, "You know what the bank did?" And I said, "You don't even have to say it. The accounts were locked." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I can't do anything. I can't get any money. I can't do anything for my preparing for my mother's funeral, the taxes and all the other expenses that need to be taken care of." And he says, "I'm just exhausted and I don't know what to do." And I said, "Come down. It's a process." But, you start talking about spending money when you have to go to court and establish an executor of the will. But you can eliminate all of that by doing what? Having POD put on the checking, savings, and business accounts. So please remember that word, POD, that acronym, pay on death. You need that on your accounts, whether you're taking care of somebody or you're just taking care of business. Come on, the business of being a caretaker and a care provider. All right. The Bible teaches us that we suffer because of a lack of knowledge. As a pastor, I've witnessed through the years, unfortunately, you hope that the better angels come out in families, but oftentimes it does not. And you find the people that were not there, didn't help out, are the very ones that will run to the bank, try to go open, get the safety deposit box open, etc., etc. Eliminate all of that so you can keep your peace. Eliminate all of that because you have enough to do just preparing for the transition of your parent and the preparation that's required in that process. Well, let's move on. Our next acronym, let's talk about the TAS. The TAS. It's important that we talk about the authorized signer. That's another form that you can complete, that you can use, that will be on file at the bank. The only thing about the authorized signer responsibilities also end at the time of death. As an authorized signer, though, while your parents or loved ones are living, you have the opportunity to sign any checks and complete any forms for payment on their behalf, electric bill, gas bill, whatever they need. You have the ability to do that. Let me give you a little black story on that. I was at the bank with my mom, and mama said to the lady how much money she wanted to get out of her account. And she said, "Okay, Miss Catherine, you need to sign the check." And mama said, "Oh, no, my baby's going to sign it." And she said, "I know you have her doing that, but Miss Catherine, you can put her in that can be libel. That could be libel issues with that." Because my mama looking at it like, no, no, I gave my baby permission to sign my name. But anyway, she went on to say that, you could actually, if someone really wanted to pursue it, they could actually possibly charge you with fraud because you're signing someone's signature without having the legal documentations to do it. So the next morning, my mom is, she's a proactive person. She said, "Let's go to the bank." I said, "Okay, what are we doing today, Mom?" And she said, "We're going down there to get that form so we can put your name on there." I said, "Okay." So my mom and my stepdad, we all went to the bank, and they sat down and they began to explain the different forms. And they said to my mother, "Well, she can just be a signer on your account, but she doesn't have any authority." And my mother said, "No, no, I want my daughter put on there as a joint signer on the account." That's another level, okay? As a joint signer, on the account versus the authorized signer. The authorized signer has no authority other than the authority that those parents or loved one will provide in terms of signing the checks. But as a joint signer on the account, you now become an owner of that account with your loved one. You're able to do whatever needs to be done. You're not limited at death. As a joint signer on the account, you can continue to transact business the way you were doing before. You don't have the liabilities of possibly the person dying without a will and the bank shutting down the account. So you see the benefit of being that joint signer on the account. Now, there's a little drawback to it too. Let me say that because as a joint signer, then what happens? Their income becomes your income, and that can, cause some problems down the road about services they may be able to get or may not be able to get. But in the long run, it pays off to be the joint signer on the account. So those are the things that we wanted to talk about today. We will be back next week and we're going to talk about documentation. There are some very important records that you need to be able to put your hands on at any time. Really, there are records that you need to put in the air so that you will have them available if in a situation you have to deal with an issue related to your parents and they said, okay, I need to see the copy of your power of attorney. I need to see the dual power of attorney. I need to see this record. I need the social security number. I need to know what their Medicare or Medicaid number. There are certain forms that you need to have in place that you can just touch. You know exactly where they are. Or you can put them in the air so that you can have them in your phone or whatever the case might be. We'll talk about that next week. Thank y'all so much for coming in. Remember, what's important to you may not be important to others, but it is important to me. So if you have ideas or you have something you want to share, please, please, please share the broadcast. You can email me on at theladyofwisdom@gmail.com or go to my website, www.drcc, to contact me. If you would like to be an upcoming guest, because I'm excited about our December series, it will be on the power of no as it relates to holidays and relationships, because I teach women and men that the ability to say no is a yes to yourself. I'll be back next week. Please join us. God bless you. And remember always to push, press, and win. I am Dr. Cece, aka the Lady of Wisdom. Mike out.
Dr. Cece, the Lady of Wisdom, reminds you that what you're going through is important to her. She would love to hear from you. Subscribe and share the podcast with your friends. For more information, conversation, or prayer, you may contact the Lady of Wisdom at www.drcctheladyofwisdom.com or email theladyofwisdom@gmail.com. You may scan the QR code to pick up Dr. Cece's latest book, The Family Business for Caretakers. Join Dr. Cece next week for her next Important Things podcast. And remember to push, press, and win.